Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Letitia Iona. I'm a faith-based woman's life coach, and I teach women how to thrive, not just survive, in the midst of life's challenges. Today is going to be on a topic that is something that I've been discovering and learning more and more about, and really just coming to a better understanding. Often when you're going through something and things are happening to you, happening to your body, you just think it's just a normal part of life. But then when you come out of it and you're reflecting on it, you start to see maybe a lot of what was going on in my life was affecting this physical thing that was happening. So I haven't talked about all these things. Well, that's not true. I have talked about them maybe like a post or like a short TikTok about one part of it, but in this video, I'm going to share all of it and what I believe was happening during the time that these physical things were happening to me. So I want to share the details about the physical changes that me as a human, but also as a woman, happened to my body during my marriage and relationship. And I want to talk about what's happened since I've left. So I think the best place to start is knowing that I've always been a very healthy person. Like, I didn't have my first cavity until I was 48 or 49. I got my very first cavity, okay? The only surgery I've ever had was C-sections for both of my kids. I have had a miscarriage, which happened many years ago, which affected my cycle thereafter. And we'll get into that in a minute. But I've never had anything major happen. I did break my leg, fractured my leg, the year I moved to Tennessee. So that was 4 years ago, but that was the first time I ever broke any bones in my body. So I've always been pretty healthy, even when I've been super pregnant, even when I've been, overweight. I mean, I'm overweight now, but when I've been more overweight, I still go to the doctor, have physicals. Blood pressure is good, cholesterol, all these different things are good. I have not had any major problems. But during the second year of my marriage, my body started breaking down. I began having the most excruciating pain that would start in my abdomen, it would move into my chest, and eventually it would cause me to vomit, and pretty violently and incessantly. This went on periodically and it was terrifying. Never felt so out of control and like didn't know what was going on with my body. I remember nights like rolling around on the floor, just crying and in pain. My ex, he would often feel really bad for me, but didn't really know what to do. He would have compassion. He would try to give me ideas of what it might be, but there was always a limit. And eventually he wouldn't feel bad anymore. I remember times that me and my daughter would get sick, like the flu or cold or COVID or whatever, and we would stay home from school. I would stay home from work, or I would stay home to take care of my daughter. And for some reason, he would just say, "You guys are faking it. It's not real. Like, you're not sick." I remember one night there was an ice storm going on. School was canceled, work was canceled. So we're all home, and one of these painful, excruciating episodes happened. And I really tried to hold out because I don't really even like going to the doctor. It has to be really bad. But here we are, full on ice storm, and I couldn't take it anymore. I had to go to the hospital. And so he drove me like very carefully, very slowly. I mean, there were no cars on the road. And after these excruciating episodes happening, I ended up going to doctors. I got a colonoscopy. I got the camera that goes down your throat. I mean, everything. And doctors never figured out what it was. Those doctors never figured out what it was. They did find things that I had wrong with me that I didn't know. Nothing major, but like a fatty liver. I had a hiatal hernia, things that I didn't know that I had. So those were good. But it wasn't until I had my last episode and I'm getting dressed for church. I haven't even eaten, and whatever is left in my stomach came up, and I'm still violently vomiting, and there's nothing in my system. And so I'm dressed to go to church. So I got in the car and I drove myself there. And I think I threw up in the car. I threw up in the parking lot. Like, it was so bad. Anyways, I finally get checked in. Doctor finally comes and tells me, it's your gallbladder. And, gave me two options. I could come back and do an in-outpatient type of surgery, or I could stay overnight and have the surgery in the hospital. I said, I will not go home with this pain. I will not go home knowing that this could happen again. Checked into the hospital, had the surgery the next morning, went home. And so here I am now in thousands of dollars of medical debt, of which I didn't get any help, but it didn't stop there. So towards the end of the marriage, I started having strange accidents. And to me, I just thought I'm being clumsy, like I'm not paying attention, or I don't know. One time I cut my foot open. I mean, pretty thick gash on the top of my foot. And it was so bad. Thankfully, I didn't have to get stitches, but I had to have like antibiotics. I had to miss work. I had to go back to the urgent care, and they had to, re-bandage it. I had to change the bandage every day. Like, it was a thing. I think a few weeks after that, I'm cutting my homemade bread, and the way my hand is on the pan, I go to cut and I just slit this part of my hand open. And I did have to get stitches. I'd never even had stitches. I had to get a stitch. It was weird, being married to somebody like that. Like, immediately they want to take care of you. They want to help you. They want to drive you to the hospital. I think when that happened, I think he paid $100 my medical bills. It was more than that, but he paid $100. But like I said, like, the empathy and sympathy would just kind of be like, okay, now you're making it up. So one night I came home, and during this time in the marriage, there was a lot of just tension. Again, never knowing what I was going to get, if I came home first or if I came home after he got home. And so I got home and he was already in bed, already asleep. And so I got dressed for bed and I slipped into bed, and I began having what I now know to be a panic attack. And I wasn't really feeling anything as to why I was having this, but I just started having this just major pain in my chest. And I remember, like, this is going to be the third emergency in the past 2 months. Like, it's sad that I felt that way, but I felt like I cannot bother him with this thing. He's already given me grief about everything else. I just need to, like, breathe through it. And I've learned very good breathing from, Lamaze. And so that's what I did. And I was able to breathe through the pain so that I could go to sleep. Sometime later, I woke up with the same pain and I just breathed through it. I was just like, I can't tell him. I can't go to like, I can't go through the stress of what will become of this with him. And so I just was able to go back to sleep. So the next day, I ended up going to urgent care. And within minutes of me telling them what had happened to me the night before and them examining me, the doctor believed I was having a heart attack. And I was like, what? I don't feel like I'm having a heart attack. y'all, before I knew it, there was an ambulance there. Two men came in the room. They put me on a gurney. They didn't want me to walk. They didn't want me to do it. Was crazy. And now I'm in this ambulance. And then I wasn't rushed, but I was semi rushed. No like sirens or anything, but taken to the hospital. And I'm just like, and I was told at least two times, we don't think you're having a heart attack. We could see why this doctor thought you might be, but we don't think you're having a heart attack. And I'm like, well, can I just get out of the ambulance, please? But they didn't want to, the liability of something happening or whatever. End up getting to the hospital, taking all these tests. And I'm like, oh, I got to call and tell him. So I call and tell him. He didn't stop work wherever he was as a truck driver. He didn't stop. He finished. And then he came to the hospital and he picked me up and took me to eat, seemingly taking care of me. I could tell that he was a little bothered. But yeah. And then sometime after we got together, and probably after we got engaged, I believe, and probably prior to this, but I believe I went into perimenopause. I began having hot flashes, night sweats, the foggy pain, joint pain. Foods that didn't bother me were affecting my joints. I mentioned fracturing my leg some years ago, 2001. Certain foods I was eating was affecting my leg. It was crazy. After about a year and a half, when these symptoms started, I went into full post menopause. And I was coming up to 2 years of no cycle, which would have been next month, November 2025. And out of the blue, my cycle came back. So prior to my cycle coming back after almost 2 years of no cycle, the beginning of September, I did a 10-day liver cleanse. Best cleanse I've ever done. Now, this is prior to my cycle, probably 2 or 3 weeks before my cycle. At the end of the 10-day liver cleanse, most of my perimenopause symptoms stopped. So I stopped having hot flashes. Sugar, caffeine, soy, all these different things would cause me to have hot flashes, and they stopped. Physical things, just minor physical ailments that I've had, like feels like most of my adult life, stopped. And then my cycle came. So now I'm like, so I'm not in menopause anymore. Or at least the symptoms are not pointing me to menopause. I must be in perimenopause, because you can be in perimenopause for a while before you actually transition to menopause and then postmenopause. And it didn't just come back like a little bit, it came back a lot. And I've had 2 cycles since. Here I've been out of that marriage 9 months. My divorce has been finalized about 3 to 4 months. And here I am, and I'm like, am I in menopause? Am I in perimenopause? Like, where am I? Now, to add to that, I did start hormone therapy this summer. And they say that there's a chance that your cycle could come back, but it's very low. And I really thought that it would happen right away. So I'm still in that 3 to 6 months of starting my hormone therapy. So that's probably a part of it. But I remember when I got my cycle, one of my first thoughts was, God put me into menopause so that I wouldn't get pregnant. I just wholeheartedly believe that. I've never had a problem getting pregnant from my first marriage. I've always been pretty fertile myrtle. And, we had a pretty vivacious, healthy sex life. So I could not figure out. I mean, we would talk about it. We were open to having kids. And I was just like, I don't understand why I'm not getting pregnant. But I do. I believe that he was protecting my body and a potential child from this very toxic, abusive environment. One of my coworkers shared with me about a book that talks, I haven't read it, but the title says something about the body keeps the score. And what's interesting is I did a TikTok about this, and a dear friend of mine who was in a very, very similar situation, when she saw the TikTok, she texted me and she told me that she had a similar situation coming out of her abusive marriage, but it was flip flop. Mine stopped in the marriage, but when she came out, hers stopped. And she went to the doctors trying to figure out what was going on. Doctors couldn't really figure it out. And after so many months, within a year, 9 to 11 months, her cycle came back. People who are in stages of perimenopause, menopause, they want to be done with their cycle. They don't want to have it. And if you just get, small inkling of a cycle, the whole thing starts all over again. You start at day one. When you have not had a cycle for an entire 12 months, that's when you go into, well, menopause is one day, and then you go into postmenopause. But I tell you, when it came back, even though it was like quite a headache, just adjusting to that since I haven't had one in a while in so long, I was not sad. I wasn't necessarily elated, but I was like, wow, it came back. I haven't had one and it came back. And, you know, as much as women want to be done with that season of life, there's still something about that season of life that makes you feel like a woman, makes you feel alive, and you can still have children. And I always believed that I would have another child. I always did. And I don't know if that's what God has for me, but the chance is still there. I have learned from this whole experience that my body was breaking down, even though I didn't really fully understand it. And when you're in it, you just think it's just a thing or it's random, or like I said, I'm just being clumsy. My body was breaking down emotionally, and my body was breaking down under emotional, mental, and spiritual oppression. And once I was free, it began to heal. I want women to know that they can thrive even in the midst of something as horrible as a toxic, abusive marriage. Because I did. I did things that I never thought that I would do, especially in the midst of that God empowered me and strengthened me to do. I think that I would have been worse off if I did not pursue joy in that difficult relationship, that difficult marriage. If I didn't do things specifically for me, and I just know that I would have been, I might be, in a mental institute right now. I definitely wouldn't be in this home. I wouldn't be able to take care of my daughter. So if you're watching this and your body has been reacting to circumstances, situations, trauma with illness, anxiety, exhaustion, random accidents, I want you to know that you're not crazy. But I also want you to pay attention. Don't excuse those things as just something happening, especially if they've never happened before. And along with that, you're not crazy and you are not alone. Your body is wise. God created our bodies to speak to us, to let us know when there is danger. It sets off warning signals in our body. My body has done that for years, even before this difficult marriage. If I was too busy, too worn down, not eating enough, not drinking enough, my body would tell me. Listen to it. Listen to what your body is telling you. God ultimately wants to restore you, and He will. In time, He will restore you, and He will restore your body. If this video resonated with you, hit that like button. Stop just hanging out with me. Make a commitment and subscribe. Subscribe so that you can be notified every time I release a video on Mondays. This is valuable information that I'm sharing from my heart to let you know that your story isn't done. God is not done writing your story. Until next time.